Kabbalat Shabbat begins. Come, let us sing to the Lord. L'chuna ranana l'Adonai, Nariya l'tzor yishenu, page 24. Let the heavens rejoice, the earth be glad, let the sea and all within it roar praise. Page 26, 4 lines at the bottom. Yismechu Hashemayim.
Yismechu Hashemayim.
Hashemayim.
Yismechu Hashemayim.
Hashemayim. Yismechu Hashemayim. V'tagel haaretz. Yismechu Hashemayim. Hashemayim. Yismechu Hashemayim. Yismechu Hashemayim. V'tagel haaretz. Hayam. 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 Praise the Lord with the harp and the voice of song. Zamru l'Adonai b'chinor, translated below, page 30.
Zamru l'Adonai b'chinor,
B'chinor v'kol zimra, v'tzrot v'kol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai. Zamru l'Adonai b'chinor, b'chinor v'kol zimra, v'tzrot v'kol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai. Exalt the Lord our God, worship at his holy mountain. Page 32, 2 lines at the bottom. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu.
Romamu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodsho.
Adonai Morla David, we rise, page 36. Give glory to the Lord on high. Come, my friend, the bride to meet the Holy Shabbat. Let us greet, page 40 and 42. Likrat Shabbat lechuven elcha, ki mekor haberacha, ki mekor habracha. Merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshava techila, lecha dodi likrat kala. na'arim me'afar kumim, livshi bigdei tifartei livshi bigdei tifartei al yad ben Yishai beit halachmi korvel nafshi ge'ala lecha dodi lekrat Allah lecha dodi likrat Tevo shivelo tikol min matishtoch achi u'matehemi bach yechesu aniyei ami v'nivneta ir al tila la la lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala v'nei v'nei lekabla lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala v'nei v'nei Shabbat nekabela
Yuli Meshisa Shosai V'rachaku kol me'olayim Yasis alayim Elohai
Kimsos Satan al kala la 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 la
Lecha lecha dodi Likrat likrat kala V'nei v'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi Likrat likrat kala V'nei v'nei Shabbat nekabela
Yaminu small tifrotzi V'yet Adonai taharitzi Al yad ish ben partzi V'nismecha v'nagila la 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 Lecha lecha dodi Likrat likrat kala V'nei v'nei Shabbat nekabla Come now, Shabbat, the day divine, come enjoy, let your brightness shine. Come to the people which greet you with pride. Come in peace. Shabbat bride. The psalm for the Shabbat day, the Sabbath psalm, Psalm 92, on page 44, Mizmor Shir, Liyom HaShabbat. Kinor Yom HaShabbat Tov lehodot l'Adonai U'lezamer Shema Elyon Lezamer Shema Elyon Simach Ani Adonai beforenecha Aseh Yadech Magadol Ma'asecha Adonai Me'od Amru Ma'ashir Yom HaShabbat Tov lehodot l'Adonai U'lezamer Shema Elyon
וזמר לשמך אדוני מלך אהוד לבש, לבש אדוני זית הזן, אף תיקון יבש, לעד אימות, לעד אימות, נכון גזעך מאז, לעולם אתה, נשאוני
The Mara service for Shabbat, evening service begins with the call to worship as we turn to page 52 for the Baruch Hu. Please rise. God's gift of the Torah and mitzvot as an expression of love, Ahavat Olam. The second paragraph of the Baruch Hu precedes the Shema. Praise you, O Lord, who loves his people Israel. Transliterated at the bottom of page 60. paragraph of the Shema on page 72. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'lechtecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha uv'kshatam liot ayadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. Continue silently. Second and third paragraphs of the Shema on pages 80 and 82. V'hayam Shema tishma'u el mitzvotayesh. Vayomer Adonai Moshe lemor. Leman tizkaru v'asitem ekol mitzotai v'yitem kedoshim leloheichem ani Adonai Elohechem asher tzeitti etchem eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem emet.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
May you continue your protecting care over Israel, O Lord. Guard all your children from disaster. When the children of Israel beheld your might, they gave thanks to you and praised your name, accepting your sovereignty willingly, and sang this song of the sea to them. Middle of page 86, Mi Chamocha. Help us, O God, to lie down in peace, to awaken us to life for tomorrow. Shield us, we pray, against our foes, against plague, destruction, and sorrow. Hashkivenu, page 90. Shlomecha, Baruch Atah Adonai, Aporeis Sukkot Shalom. Amen. V'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Amen. Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, Amen. We rise to the declaration of the Shabbat of Vishamru from the book of Exodus, found on page 96.
לעשות את השבת
Amram Be'olema. For Shabbat for Friday night service. It's found on pages 110 through 118. heavens and the earth and all that was within them were finished. By the seventh day, God had completed the work of creation, and so God rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because on it God ceased all the divine work of creation.
מגן אבות בדברו, מחיים מתים במאמרו, האל הקדוש שאין כמוהו, המניח לעמו ביום שבת קודשו, כי בם רצה להניח להם, כי בם רצה להניח להם, לפניו נעמוד ביראה ופחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד, בין הברכות. ההוד ההוד אדון השלום, מקדש השבת וברך שביעי, ומניח בקדושה לעמדו שני עונש, זכר למעשה אדוני מקדש השבת.
קדיש שלם.
יתגדל ויתקדש שם רבה.
אמן.
יברך ילדה וימליך מלכותה בחייכון ובכל חיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן.
אמן.
יש לרמה ותברך לעולם ולעולם ולעולם היה.
יתברך.
בית רומם בית נשא ויתהדר ויתהדר על שמי קודשם.
ברכו.
אלה מכל ברכתה ושילתה ושבחתה ונחמתה דם ויאמרו
אמן.
אמן. תתקבל צאתו ובדות לכל ישראל גם תשמע ויאמרו
אמן.
יש בנו משמע וחיים עלינו ולכל ישראל ויאמרו
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומה
הוא יעשה שלום עלינו
ועל כל ישראל
ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
ויאמרו אמן.
We rise to the sanctification of the day through the Kiddush on page 142. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha B'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch Ata Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Maybe seated.
Shabbat Shalom. Let's try that one more time. Shabbat Shalom. Please join us tonight as we sing a beautiful song by Noah Aronson, Am I Awake? Shabbat Shalom וברכה.
So we arrived from Israel, 3-week trip at 6 a.m. this morning. Why my eyes might be a little bit blurry. A wonderful, wonderful trip. And every time you go to Israel, if you're going by the weather, there is one warning. You do have to get to the airport 4 hours in advance when you're in Israel. And you'll barely make it even in 4 hours. It's a long ordeal to get out of the airport. That's due to a lack of personnel. That's the problem. There's not enough people working, so they can't move things along fastly enough. But everything moved along. Everything was on time. The weather was wonderful, so there were no circumstances that would have caused any types of delays. When you're in Israel and you're living in Israel and experiencing Israel not as a tourist, but as Israelis experience it, even if you've been there many, many times, each time something new happens, it gives you a completely different perspective. So the last few weeks, like in America, except in Israel it's a few weeks later, is the end of year activities. School in Israel ends usually the end of June. The only problem is that there's always strikes, so it ended a week early because there was a strike. The teachers went on strike for very good reason. The pay for teachers in Israel is pitifully low, dangerously low, because they can't get people who want to be teachers. So it's something that must be resolved. But there are many end-of-year activities, including, of course, graduations, which took place. And it happened to be timed very well because we went there for the bat mitzvah of one of the granddaughters, which happened to take place during the time of all these graduations. So we had graduation of our eldest granddaughter from law school, from Bar Ilan Law School, and we had graduation of our second eldest granddaughter from high school, and then there were some graduations, at lower levels because we got a kid in at least every grade there. So we experienced a lot of different end-of-year activities. And for one of the grandsons, something they do in Israel, and they perhaps do it in schools here in America, is something called shorashim. So this is one of the examples. I want to give you two examples of when you're living within Israel with Israelis, how you understand the country differently. Shorash, it means your roots. It's roots, right? So what's the assignment? It's actually a year course in which the students research their own families. And in researching their own families, they end up researching an aspect of Jewish history because you have from so many different places. So our grandson, he did his shorashim, and he found his roots from Russia and from Poland, and he had a great-grandfather who was murdered by Stalin during the time when they were killing off all the artists and musicians and the talented people, because Stalin was afraid of them and possibly that they would call him out for what he really was. And they killed off intellectuals, and one of Omri's great-grandfathers was from that side of the family, his mother's side of the family, which is Russian. And the kids at the end of the year ceremony make a presentation. They show you what their work is, and they bring something from the great-grandparents or even great-great-grandparents that has stayed within the family, and they bring it for show and tell. And what you realize as you go through the room is normally, particularly growing up in America, you talk about, the great-grandparents, they came from Poland or they came from Russia. And maybe from Germany or, some other Eastern and Western European countries. But when you're in Israel, you find that their shorashim, their roots, are literally from every place on the face of this earth. Jews who would come to Israel over the last few generations and settled in Israel, or they lived in Europe, or they lived in the Middle East, or they lived in South America, wherever they were, and this generation, the generation that is researching it, ended up in Israel. So you realize that it is a multi-ethnic community that's hard for us even to imagine. If you've ever been in Israel and got on an Egged bus, which I don't recommend, but if you happen to get on an Egged bus and take a deep breath and pray a lot, because they fly through the streets, if you sit on an Egged bus and you look around, you think you're at a UN General Assembly meeting, right? Lahavdil, obviously, UN General Assembly meeting is a horrible experience. But in terms of the background, you look around a UN General Assembly and you have every race and every ethnic group and every nationality, every religion you could imagine. That's why it's called the UN, the United Nations. That's an Egged bus. You get on an Egged bus and you see every color face, every nationality, every type of dress that you can imagine, every different accented Hebrew you'll hear, as well as a few other languages as well. So that experience, that end-of-year experience with Omri, the one who did the Shorashim, reminded me once again of the enormity of the ingathering of the Jewish people from around the world who have come together to create this state of Israel. The other experience was the high school graduation, and this made a great impact. The high school graduation for Orly took place outside. In Israel in June, you could always do it outside. There's no threat of rain, and it took place in the early evening, so it already cooled off, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people who had gathered, along with the approximately 160, 170 students who were graduating. It's very Israeli. There's no such thing as dressing up, even for high school graduation. There's sandals, shorts, T-shirts, whatever the weather is, that's how they dress. There is no dress code whatsoever, whether you're being in the audience or whether you're a student graduating. There's no robes, there's no hats. They're dressed as they do as individuals. And the program consisted of a lot of entertainment put on by the kids themselves. And they're talented. A lot of it was very humorous, almost slapstick-like. There were no keynote addresses, no main speaker. People spoke from their heart, offered thank yous, a lot of humor in it. But as you listen to the teachers and the principal and all those who were addressing themselves to the high school students, in America you would hear about, you're about to go out into the world. You're going out into, in a typical public school, a certain percentage are going out to the universities. And they usually want to mention a few of the universities the kids are going to because it looks good, if you have some kids going to elite universities, or they're going out perhaps into the workforce, and they talk about this new life they're going to enter of study and work. And an Israeli high school graduation, none of that comes up. Nobody's going out to work. Nobody is going to university. That's the hardest part to understand, because I go mainly to Jewish graduations, and everybody's going to university. And the list of universities is one of the major things you hear. How many kids are going to Harvard? How many kids are going to Princeton? How many kids are going here, there, right? And the high school graduation in Israel, what do they talk about? Come home safe. That's what they talk about. Be careful. Come home safe. They talk about the army. And what are the kids talking about? Which part of the Israeli army do they want to get into, and which one can they test into? You can't just say, I want to be an Air Force pilot. There are actually a few exams you have to go through before you can get into Air Force pilot school. And that's true with whatever you might choose to do. So they're not only preparing for their final exams, right? Similar to New York, where there's exams you have to take to finish your high school degree. They're preparing for the interviews they're going to go through, not for a job. Well, it is a job, but it's a different type of job. Not to get into a university, but which part of the Israeli armed services they will be able to be a part of. That's why the graduation was filled with light entertainment and humor, because there's an undercurrent and understanding of where they're going next. 18-year-olds, where they're going next, which is to serve in the army, which also led, of course, to a significant amount of patriotism on the part of the kids, because they're about to serve their country. But to them, it's not just serve, it's serve and protect in a very real sense. They know they are literally protecting their families. They're protecting those teachers that have guided them for all these years. And that creates a totally different type of teenager. They're different than teenagers in other Western countries, because they're the only country, except of course, sadly, Ukraine right now, the only country that literally is always in a state of war and always ready, always being prepared. And that creates a teenager who has to grow up very quickly. They don't have time to have, a fun-filled freshman year with maybe a little bit too much drinking and not enough study. And then you can make it up the second and third years when you realize you got to get serious. They have until September. They have a break now. They don't go in immediately. They have until September to put on that uniform get that rifle and get very, very serious about life. And you know what they don't have where they're going? There ain't no safe places, right? They learn about the world very, very quickly. And the other thing they understand is that they are dependent on each other. They have to have each other's backs. So you see a connection between them. Even though they haven't yet entered the army, they know that whoever they're going with needs to have their back, literally, to keep them safe, to keep them alive. It creates the chevra. It creates the connection that binds the society together, very much like the kibbutz experience. Those people are lifelong friends. They are family. When you enter the army, those in that gedud, those in that particular division of the Israeli armed forces, they become your family, and they become the ones who you rely on for protection and for guidance and for wisdom. And so when you live within the Israeli society, you begin to understand much more the difference between growing up in America, growing up in Israel, living in Israel and the reality that they face, living in America and the different realities we face. And that's why I think sometimes the gap between American Jewry and Israeli Jewry seems to be so great, is because we don't have the same experiences that they have on a regular basis. And that was most evident to me. I'd never been to a high school graduation before in Israel. Why would I? Right? Our eldest granddaughter graduated in America, and then they made Aliyah, and so this was the second one, and she was the first of those who now live in Israel to graduate. And so it taught me a very important lesson about the reality of Israeli life and why it's so difficult for American Jews to understand the intensity of their life, the precariousness of their life, and how they view their situation, living it, rather than how we view it from thousands of miles away, looking from a distance, reading newspapers and hearing reports that are almost never, ever accurate. So get there as whenever you can. It's open. There's no more testing. There's no more show me your vaccination card. I had it there. I was going to show it to anybody who wanted it, but nobody asked. There were no more mask requirements. Absolutely a totally open society right now. Things could theoretically change, but right now it's very easy to get there except for the long lines. Other than that, it's easy to get there. And for some reason, summer arrived late in Israel. The heat of the summer has not actually arrived yet, although they said it might over this weekend, so it made it a little bit more pleasant. And another great experience. I've been there dozens of times, and each time I learned so much more about who they are, what their lives are like, and what they accomplish in such extraordinary fashion. So we'll continue our services now with the Aleinu on page 166. Please rise. Baruch Hu. Yosei Haaretz, Moshav Yikaro Bashamayim Mima'al, Shchinatu Zo, Shchinatu Zo, Begave Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Elon, Emem Malkeinu Efes Ulato, Hakatu Torato, Lahashev Hota El Vavecho. Hua Elohim Mimal Ve'al haaretz mitachat In solemn testimony to that unbroken faith, which links your generations, house of Israel, one to another, let those who are in mourning and observing Yurtzeit this week remain standing to sanctify God's name through the words of the Kaddish. Kaddish is found on page 184. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, b'yomah divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, V'chayechon uv'yimechon v'chayedecho beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'zman kariv imramein Yehei shmei rabba mevarach li'olam l'mei amaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei l'kudsha b'richum Li'ela min kol b'chata v'shirata tuzv'rata v'nechamata Damiram bi'amav imramein Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu V'al kol Yisrael v'imramein Oseh shalom b'imramav Hu yaseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May be seated. Okay.
Good evening. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi Farber. I know you traveled so far just to be with us tonight, and we really appreciate it. Thank you to Evelyn. You two always put on a beautiful service. Thank you to Ishmael and to Mario. I'm sorry. And to our stand-in pianist. Thank you so... Adriana, sorry. Thank you. Thank you to Betty Joy, to Marla. Special thank you this evening to Marshall Baltuck. Marshall Baltuck has been an amazing part of Beth Torah for so many years. He just finished his last contract with us on June 30th. So I just want to say a very special thank you to him for all of his hard work, dedication, his hours, his guiding forces that he's always been there for us, and we thank him with all of our love and support. Thank you, Marshall. Condolences to Ruanne Spuvnik and the passing of her father, Maurice Katz, last Shabbat, and to Edgar and Fernando Halak on the passing of their mother, her last name, I'm sorry, Rosa, right here.
Chorose Halak.
In Argentina last Shabbat as well.
Shabbat Shalom. On July the 12th at 7 o'clock p.m., we will commemorate the 28th anniversary of the Armenia Jewish bombing in Argentina. It's very important that we continue to ask for justice. It's been a long time, and we'll continue to do so until the responsible people are brought to justice. It's going to be at Danbury on July 12th at 7 o'clock. You can register online at amia28.eventbrite.com.
All of you got flyers when you were walking in. Please make sure to attend. On Thursday, July 14th and Thursday, July 21st, we invite you to join us for balloon smashing painting, an artist class for adults with Valeria. Please register at www.btbrc.org.
The second in our summer series of Taste of Shalom, it's a Shabbat dinner at home in Canada. It's Friday, July 22nd. You can order, not today, but you can order after Shabbat at www, I'm sorry, I'm still in your line, but you can say it.
Go ahead.
www.btbrc.org. Orders must be placed by Monday, July the 18th.
The next event that we're having at Beth Torah, Rabbi Farber might start singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Field," "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." But please join us at Lone Depot Park for the Marlins versus the New York Mets. They gotta lose on Sunday, July 31st at 1:40 p.m. Please buy your tickets at www.btbrc.org.
If you have not renewed your membership yet, please, you can do so for the 2022-2023 year. You can get in touch with the office. I don't know if you can do it online at the same website, but otherwise you can get in touch with the office to renew your membership.
I know this last announcement might sound a little crazy, but Sisterhood is already planning for Rosh Hashanah. So please make sure you order your honey from Sisterhood on our website. And also please remember to register for their membership renewal. We want to wish all of you a wonderful Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for joining us here tonight.
Shabbat Shalom.
You could have the website on the screens. That would help us, put right out there. We'll conclude with Adon Olam on page 188.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר דיבר לעת נשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה ותפארה והוא אחד ואין שני לעם שילה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחסדו אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחסדו אזי מלך
As we enter this weekend of celebration of the birth of this nation, we first want to wish Mike and Marla Katzen a happy anniversary as they got married on July 4th. And we offer this prayer for our country as it celebrates its birthday. Our God and God of our ancestors, we invoke your blessing upon our country, on the government and the leaders of our nations, and on all who exercise rightful authority in our community. Instruct them out of your law that they may administer all affairs of state in justice and equity, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, right and freedom may always abide among us. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all in peace and freedom, and helping to fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all people, both great and small, shall come to know the Lord. Amen. O Javo Aleinu, Shalom. Shalom. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu.
Odiavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al Salam.
Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam. Shalom. Salam. Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam. Shalom. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice and only justice we must pursue. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom,